Dark. Next morning I couldn't read it. Bought a flashlight and I could read it, but get a Kindle. They light up for you. You can punch it in there, email it to yourself, put it on your computer. That's the way I do it. Research, I don't guess I know what that is. It's like an outline. What's an outline? I don't have any education. I read about proverbs. I need to read about nouns. I read about possessive pronoun. If you got a possessive, what do you need the other one for? I don't know none of this stuff. I just put down, I told Alan earlier that I'm not a writer, I'm a stenographer. I just put down what my characters tell me to. I tried an outline a couple of times. I wanted them to go over here and do something, and they wind up over here doing exactly the opposite. I guess if you're a writer, you know what I'm talking about. I wasn't planning on a series when I wrote this. I've been wanting to be an author. I tried writing a book in 1972 before computers. I had encyclopedias scattered all over the floor. I got 10 pages written. And again, with no education, it's even hard to research an encyclopedia. So I give up. I've written songs, poems all my life. 2013, I published through Amazon 13 28-page poetry books. Haven't sold a one. They want too much money for them. And maybe after I die, they'll sell them. But this book here was written because my grandson's ex, I learned that she was a published author and doing pretty well at it. And I said, dadgummit, if that woman can do it, so can I. And I set out, Angel Falls, Texas. It's located in Texas, Art, but it ain't real, except to these guys. Jedediah Isaiah Jenkins. Now, why did I think of a name like that? Because it sounded good. I didn't know I was going to have to continue to write that later on. I have to look it up every time I spell Isaiah and Jedediah. I have to Google it because I can't remember how to spell it. But anyway, he's an 18-year-old. He's a Christian, baptized. His mama left when he was young. His daddy owns a blacksmith shop and a livery stable. It was one of the first houses in town to have running water because his daddy built the windmill. Daddy's a quiet man. One day, well, let me just get over. I'm skipping a whole bunch that I want to tell you about. But don't skip too far. One day I went to the livery stable a little early because Paul wanted me to deliver a special tool that he had spent 2 days repairing for one of the elderly customers who didn't get to town very often. I tied Sugar, that's my horse. I named him Sugar because he liked sugar. I tied him to the back door of the stable and started in. A big, almost as big as Paul, which Paul's 6'7". Big muscles because he hammers that anvil all day. A big, grotesque-looking man with a dark red furred scar that ran down just above his right eye, down along his jaw, and disappeared into his sweat-stained collar, came riding up on a worn-out bay mare whose coat was slicked with leather. See, I can't read either. We had seen a lot of men return from the war with scars, beaten down and mean, but no one compared to this fellow who sent a cold chill down to the tips of my toes. He had meanness oozing out from him all over him, like water on a slicker on a rainy day. His clothes reeked with a sick, sweaty, greasy smell that caused my stomach to tighten and come mighty close to losing my breakfast. As he glanced my way, I quickly averted my eyes and looked down that lonely, dusty road from where he'd come. The sky had turned purplish. The wind stilled, and the dog stopped barking like a storm was in the making. When the man spoke, it sounded like gravel rattling in a wooden bucket. Needs his right shoe tightened, be ready to ride in half an hour, he growled. This horse ain't going no place without proper rest, at least 3 days. He's all rode out. Be a miracle if he makes it through the night, replied Paul. Did I ask for your opinion or advice? I don't think I did, he growled. Paul was a real easygoing man, but he had this habit of always speaking his mind and saying exactly what he was feeling. As I look back, I wish Paul had been different that day and just not said anything. Well, I'm telling you, any man that treats an animal this way needs to be whipped, said Paul. You figure on doing that job yourself, whipped the man? Just might be I will, said Paul. As Paul sidestepped to the left, Ugly threw a sledgehammer fist at Paul's head, just missing by a tad. Paul landed a haymaker to Ugly's right temple, caused him to stagger back into the work table next to the forge. As he stumbled, he grabbed the hammer laying there. With a roundhouse swing, he connected with Paul's head, knocking him to his back on the dusty stable floor. Ugly jumped on top of him, straddled him, and continued to swing blow after blow into Paul's face. I stood frozen to the dusty stable floor, unable to move, as time seems slow to a crawl. Then, just as suddenly, I realized if I didn't do something, Paul was going to die. What I didn't realize, I can't even read my own book with him. Paul was already dead. I took my pistol from my holster and I shouted for the man to stop. He glared up at me and laughed a belly laugh as he shouted, "Yeah, I'll stop when I do, you're next." The menacing scar that jaggered along his right jaw puckered as he smirked at me, and he gave off a sinister aura when he screamed. His eyes turned black with rage as he lunged up and toward me. Then confusion clouded the man's expression as the bullet entered just above his left eye. Then his gaze went blank as he dropped the hammer of death and slumped to the stable floor. I stood and stared in awe at what I'd done. I'd just taken another man's life. Even though I was quivering on the inside, I felt extremely calm on the inside. Somehow I knew that God would understand that I didn't have a choice in the matter. The man had just killed my Paul and had every intention of making me his next victim. He most certainly would have if I hadn't reacted the way I did. I felt the forgiveness of a loving and understanding God fill me with a sweet calmness. Just then Henry Plank, the telegraph operator from next door, came running in, demanding to know what had happened. I tried to explain, but I was breathing too hard for him to understand. He looked first at my Paul, then at the dead man and said, "Son, you better head for the hills. That man you just killed is the sheriff's baby brother," and he was quite partial to him. I looked at Paul's bloody face. I felt myself grow calm on the inside. I'm not sorry I killed him. He killed my Paul. I ain't gonna make no never mind to the sheriff. He's gonna shoot first and ask questions later, exclaimed Plank. "I'll see to you, Paul. You better go now." Sugar was still saddled back of the stable where I was supposed to deliver something to that customer. I reloaded the one shot that I'd used and slid my pistol slowly into my holster. I grabbed my jacket, pulled my Stetson low on my head, and checked my saddlebag, which held the salt pork that me and Paul was going to have for dinner. I checked my canteen, tightened the cinch on Sugar's saddle, nodded to Mr. Plank, and slid easily into the saddle. I took the south road out of town and noticed the bank, the general store, and the dress shop on the right. On the left was the chuck wagon, a combination saloon and eating house. Directly across from it was the stagecoach station. The last thing I noticed as I passed the final building of town I had grown up in was a little cottonwood tree standing sentinel over the town, looking as lost and lonely as I was feeling right about then. A shiver ran through my body.
You only have 2 minutes left. Sorry.
Well, a shiver ran through my body just then. I pulled my hat down, tighter, hunched my shoulders, hunkered down in the saddle, kicked Sugar in the ribs, and took off at a gallop. As I came to the boundary of our small town, I tasted the salty tears that slid down my face, and I felt the hurting in my chest as I left Paul in a place I counted as friend. That's it. I'm a very emotional person. I watch movies on the Hallmark Channel and I choke up every time. So I don't know why I'm choked up at my own writing. It don't feel like I wrote it. I don't know if I wrote, can't even talk. I don't even sometimes know if I write these things. Like I said, I write down what they tell me to. This is not my only book. It's turned into a series. Like I said, I didn't expect it to. Turned into 7. I got a plan for 10. I think maybe it's going to end at 11 with Jed returning to Angel Falls, Texas, where the 2 friends, his girlfriend and his best friend he grew up with, she married the best friend. The best friend's going to turn into a robber or a bank robber, something. I don't know exactly. And Jed's got a decision to make in this last chapter. Is his past going to keep him from doing what he's told to do? He feels that God has ordained him to clean up these towns that nobody else will take care of. And he traveled, he doesn't like it. And he prays to God about it. But God said, you still got a job to do. I'll let you know when it's over. He gets telegrams and letters from all over. We got trouble, we need the traveler. And so he travels and he takes care of it. He's not a killer. He offers them a chance to go to jail or go meet your maker. And you know how a bad guy usually chooses. Any questions? I meant to say this, excuse me. I've got 30 books on Amazon. They're not all about this, they're other Westerns. 7 poetry books, 1 true crime, 1 about my 97-year-old grandpa, the oldest coon hunter in Somerville County. Tells some of those coon hunts that he went on. Today he'd be arrested and thrown in jail for the things that he did to those coons. But anyway, now have you got any questions? Have I got any time left for questions? Anybody?
Time's up.
Huh?
Time's up.
Okay.
Yeah, Alan asked her to watch time since he had to leave. He asked us to watch the time since he had to leave.
All right, that's fine.
That was a good reading.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful.